Well, protests erupting in North Carolina after targeted ICE raids in Charlotte. DHS's Operation Charlotte's Web resulting in the arrest of 130 illegals, including an MS-13 gang member. Criminal records of those arrested include aggravated assault, assault with a dangerous weapon, assault on a police officer, battery, driving under the influence, hit and run. Meanwhile, DHS launching a massive operation in Louisiana and Mississippi, planning to deploy about 250 federal border agents to those two states, aiming to arrest around 5,000 people. Joining me now is former acting ICE director and former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, it's great to have you here. You're probably not surprised at that list of offenses committed by these illegal immigrants. What is so interesting about what we saw happen in Charlotte is that many of these local politicians, state lawmakers, said that they were going to be out there and protesting. They were going to protect these immigrants. Then we find out the list of crimes committed by these individuals, and they're silent. Your reaction?
Yes, it's pretty interesting because, yeah, you look at that list and the people they're getting rid of are serious criminals putting their community at risk. And you do see a big difference in Charlotte, and we're going to see it in these other states as well, that they are not as gung-ho about this open borders, mass amnesty. And also the other thing that's sort of the underlying thing here is you have people like Gavin Newsom and J.D. Pritzker that want to be president, and they know the lane to be president or a Democratic nominee for president is to be full on open borders, full on amnesty, and also anti-Trump at every step. But I think a lot of politicians might actually be putting their citizens first and putting public safety first, and they're getting rid of the bad guys, and that's a good thing, and I should be applauded, and I should be thanked. And unfortunately, some politicians are unwilling to thank President Trump for making their city safer, but that's exactly what he's doing.
But yet we're still seeing attacks against these agents, and I know that that's something near and dear to you. You had 2 vehicle ramming incidents that targeted CBP agents. We've had protesters. They shout at them. They're recording them when they're trying to carry out these legal operations. What more do you think that the department can do to protect these agents so they can do their job, not be doxxed, and not have their families be doxxed online?
One of the things that they are doing and they'll continue to do is they're going to be arresting people that are obstructing or impeding their activities or assaulting them. And once some of these people start getting some serious sentences doled out by the courts, I think there will be more of a deterrent aspect of it. But really what's so unfortunate about this is so many of these people are egged on, or really it's tacitly endorsed by politicians, even though they know these ICE agents are just simply doing their jobs and enforcing the laws that they're required to enforce by Congress. And President Trump also, it's not an elective, it's a requirement that he enforce immigration laws. So it's really shameful the way these politicians, the opposing politicians have acted, because they are putting not only ICE agents in danger, but they're putting the public in danger as well. And it's really shameful. It
really is. And look, it is a federal offense to attack these officers. We've heard from Pam Bondi say that she will make sure that they are fully prosecuted, and they can face 20 years in prison. I want to move on to another issue with you. The president is urging Republicans now to redraw congressional maps ahead of the 2026 midterms. The president vowing to back primary challenges against state GOP lawmakers in Indiana who failed to support his push to redistrict. Meanwhile, you've got this, a 3-judge panel ruling Texas cannot use its newly drawn congressional map for next year's election. They must use 2021's map instead. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is planning to ask the Supreme Court to reverse that ruling. I want to get your legal hat on here for a second, Jonathan, because it's, this 3-judge panel in Texas is one issue. And then in Utah, the GOP drawn map was rejected by a judge as well. So this is now moving into the courts. What do you think is going to happen? What is your best prediction?
Well, the best prediction for Texas is they will prevail in the Supreme Court, because the law says the legislature basically has sole deference to draw these maps as long as they're not doing it for a race-based reason. They're allowed to draw maps for partisan reasons, to say, hey, we want to have as many Republicans as we want. And that's what they did here, essentially. And they're allowed to do that. And all these other states will be able to do it. The unfortunate thing for Texas is it may not get through the courts in time for the 2026 election, so they may not be able to get the benefit politically of it. But the thing that's also really important here is you have places like Illinois and Massachusetts. They already have been doing this. There's 0 Republican Congress people from Massachusetts. I think only 3 out of 17 in Illinois. So the Republicans are just keeping up with the Democrats here, which I think people need to know that. And just to be fair, because, you know, Donald Trump got 40% of the vote in places like Massachusetts and Illinois, and yet there's no or very few Republican Congress people there. So they're really doing what the Democrats have been doing all along, and ultimately they will prevail. But every single one of these, on both sides, is going to be heavily litigated because the stakes are so high.
Well, and I think I was looking at the states to watch now on the Republican side, to your point, Jonathan, and it's Texas, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, and Kansas as well. So that's certainly going to be something that we continue to see get fought, probably in the courts. I also want to ask you about this. Defense lawyers for Lisa Cook and Letitia James are rebuking their mortgage fraud allegations. They're putting the blame on Bill Pulte, and then they're calling the president's own campaign against them revenge. That's what they call it, a campaign against them by the president. Lisa Cook's attorney wrote this: "There is no fraud, no intent to deceive, nothing whatsoever criminal or remotely a basis to allege mortgage fraud." I want to get your reaction, because in the complaint against Lisa Cook in particular, it was well documented. We've seen this with Letitia James as well. Well documented that they would claim that this was going to be a primary residence, and then we find out that on their taxes they're claiming it as rental income. I mean, the paper trail is there.
Yeah, exactly. And it is interesting that the attorney attacking the government on these was the same attorney that represented Hunter Biden that attacked the Justice Department under those cases. So you have to consider that in the overall picture. But what's important, the Lisa Cook thing is only at a referral stage, meaning they came up with some evidence of criminal wrongdoing or something that might be, and they referred it to DOJ to further investigate. So we don't know where that is coming. But the Letitia James thing is quite interesting because she listed it as a primary resident, and I don't think ever lived there. In fact, she rented it out to family members. So, and the attorney, I don't think, has written an explanation about that one, which I think would be far more interesting to see, because I haven't seen it, and that one seems, at least on the surface, fairly clear cut. The Lisa Cook thing, you know, I'm sure they'll investigate and see if what he says makes sense with the facts and do what's fair.
All right, a lot to follow. Jonathan Fahey, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.